Marketing is a series of tests. We're testing channels, testing audiences, testing creatives, messaging and visuals, testing funnels that we're taking them down, and closing messaging. And we want to look for pockets of performance. It's testing, optimizing each segment to its best ability, then optimizing towards what's working best, then looking for opportunities to scale. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our February 2024 webinar, From Strategy to Activation and Everything in Between. This is the marketing plan webinar, the education for your fundraising. We're going to be talking about how to raise money online through your marketing strategy, joined here by our account director, Abby.
Hello, everyone. Delighted to be here this morning. Strategy is my favorite part of getting to know a new client, and beyond that, just helping come up with a plan that help you get through your raise, right? Because fundraising can be difficult, one of the more difficult things to do. But if you have a plan, at least you have a way to go about doing it. So we were here to talk about how we do that today.
100%. And we have had past versions of strategy. This is my favorite topic, not because I love speaking about it as much as it is the most impactful. If you came up to me at a conference and said, Jason, you've worked on a lot of investor marketing campaigns. How do we do it? How do we fundraise using the internet? I would start the discussion with strategy. If I were approached by organizers for an event and asked, hey, what would you like to talk about? Fireside chat, panel, keynote, you name it, strategy. This is the foundation for a successful campaign. We're going to talk about some of the quotes, some of the things that we say in here, so I don't want to get too far into it. If you're not familiar with DNA, we've worked on over 400 investor marketing campaigns that have produced 9 figures of capital across content, advertising, and outreach channels. Abby has firsthand worked on many of those, including the top campaigns of 2023. And as we're getting into 2024, as well as overseeing account managers to directly work on this. So that is what's in the background. That is where these recommendations come from. It is not just a fun course we decided to create. It's really the direct findings that have come as insights from those initiatives. We feel almost a duty to do this and share what's working so we could see a higher success rate industry-wide. Now, Abby, why is having a marketing strategy for an investor and user acquisition campaign, because this is not just for investors, this can be used for users for a fintech app, users for any of these issuers, post fundraise. Why is it so important? It seems pretty self-explanatory, marketing plan. Hey, groups have marketing plans, but why is it important to have a model for investor acquisition and utilizing all marketing channels to be deployed during the round?
Investor acquisition is, well, most CEOs find it to be different than product selling, right? It's very different, sort of speaking about what investors care about rather than why someone might buy your product. And so you really need to know who your audience is in order to be able to speak to their needs, right? So if you're selling a gadget, they're wanting to know about the features. But if you're selling a security, like we're talking about with regulated investment crowdfunding, then you need to be talking about why it is that investors are going to care about your deal, right? And so you're going to need to know how your competitors are raising money. What are they talking about when they are, looking at their investors, right? Because they're speaking to the same crowd of investors that you are. And there are over 500 live campaigns right now. So not only do you need to know about your industry and be able to speak to the needs of, your B2B clients or maybe your B2C company, could be either. But you also need to be able to speak to the other needs. Anyway, so you need to understand what regulated crowdfunding is and how you can stand out. And there are ways to to stand out from the crowd. And really, the top 10% of campaigns are seeing the most traction of all. And they're using really a small number of tricks, right? And we can talk about that. that's more of an activation piece. But in order to be able to know how to emphasize your key points, then you need to be able to do the research. So how do we get out there? How do we get other people talking about us? What are they going to care about? That's the strategy piece. Jason, I saw you taking some notes.
I was taking notes there, and just to add to that, it's the algorithmic roadmap to the goal. The only way to measure is with numbers. What are you going to be producing from each channel each month to be able to hit $5 million on a Reg CF, $1.235 million in Reg CF before additional paperwork, 75 million on a Reg A. And again, if you reach out to us, we're not going to give you one tactic. We're not going to say just run advertising. Uh, we have groups that are running Reg A's that want to do 75 million and start with the minimum level ad budget, and that's fine. If it works, they could scale into it. But statistically, they're going to have a much greater chance towards success if we build out a full strategy. We go through each one of these 8 points. This is our model, the 8-point plan. I've written Forbes articles about this. I've led workshops on it. I've led 3-day workshops on it. This is going to be the streamlined version, but it is going to be all-encompassing. Industry analysis, competitor marketing audit. We usually do those first 2 steps in a week, and we're going to go into detail around those. Target market, channel strategy, week 2, creative plan, strategic partnerships, week 3, and projections, activation, week 4. So why the 8-point marketing plan? It's designed to be simple, yet really covering everything and actionable. An algorithmic strategy, meaning what are the numbers we're looking at for each touch point? We don't want to be measuring just the end result. Did we raise 75 million? No. Okay, great. I guess Reg A, I guess regulated investment crowdfunding doesn't work. It's not a productive thought. That's not how you look at scaling business. You want to be able to say, hey, how many impressions did we get of the content, of the advertising? How much traffic was produced? How many investments came out? Where are those numbers off if we're looking at industry averages for each and associated benchmarks? There are events everywhere. Investors are not interested in what's been done before, but what you're doing now. And this is a model to be able to articulate that, to present that across these digital channels in a more aggressive fashion than other offers they are getting, because they are targeted nonstop. There are retail investors on these platforms. Facebook knows that. The other digital platforms know that. The financial publishers know that, and they're targeting them. If they're accredited investors, they're bombarded, inundated with investment opportunities on a daily basis. How are you going to stand out? So I've worked on many business plans. I've worked on many marketing plans. I've worked on many pitch decks, and they can become unorganized. They can become lengthy. This is 8 points. I can see them on the back of my hand. I could say them to you in my sleep. It's 4 weeks. It's 2 sections a week. You should be able to share this with your team, your investors, your partners after this. The deck is going to be, in this video available to you. You'll be able to walk through it if needed, but it's a way to cover each key point of your marketing campaign. Abby, for me, industry analysis is the toughest section because every industry has different info available. Can you explain to listeners, to viewers, the industry analysis portion and what they should really be looking for?
Sure. So when I look at it, first of all, there are 2 goals that I'm trying to accomplish. One is to make sure that I understand it well and that my team understands it so that we're able to communicate it. But more importantly, investors are looking for what the market opportunity is and how fast is it growing, and how do you stand out against your competitors, and what's your value proposition. So in order to tease those key things out, you really have to understand, well, what's happening in the industry. And it sounds simple, and it actually can be, but it's really important. And if you forget it, then you're really going to be missing out on one of the key pieces that investors want to hear about, right? Which is, again, it's that market opportunity. It's really important. And you probably aren't usually used to talking about the combined annual growth rate of your industry, but it's something that we really see quite frequently in regulated investment property.
And it's about putting pen to paper. If we, as an agency, if DNA is working on a new campaign, we absolutely want to become experts in your space and real-time experts, not just, hey, we worked on an automated retail campaign 3 years ago. We know the space. No, there's things that are happening this week that are going to be pertinent to the target audience, pertinent to the campaign. Uh, we'll hear founders say, we know everything about our industry. We don't need to do that. Well, put pen to paper, put all this down. What are the market trends? What are the keywords audiences are searching? What's the size of industry, the competitiveness of the industry, so threats to the industry, why the market is attractive to investors and consumers. And I like to look at it for 2 to 3 different verticals. I say 3, encompassing regulated investment crowdfunding, so you can have an idea of what's occurring in the space and how much was raised last year in Reg CF. Well, what's the average raise? We're going to go over some of these metrics in the next slides, but if you don't know that, where are you setting your gauge? Or are you setting up your team to fail? 2 verticals. If I was asked, hey, what vertical is DNA in? If I was to just say marketing agency, it doesn't really paint the picture. Are we, Mad Men out here? Are we a top 4 holding agency? Are we creative agency? What does it mean? We've found a niche in investor marketing. And, some would say we act as an investment bank, working with brands to bring capital in, but we are certainly not in any way, shape, or form an investment bank. But if I looked at both verticals, it would tell me something, and I get an idea of how to position the company. I find for a lot of our clients, pointing out 2 different verticals in addition to investor marketing, Reg CF, Reg A, Reg D, the specifics that you are looking at for your campaign can be very telling and set the stage for different audiences, different channels, different messaging, all the things that are come in this strategy. So Abby, I know you read the last list. I'll make sure to cover this one. Map out the history of your market, the size of your market, notable trends, notable competitors. That's going to come up in the next section. Here's where you're identifying them. Identify any notable press, current events, marketing, including growth, new investors, competitors. I want to know I want to know what conferences and organizers there are in there, where the professionals flying to. I want to really understand the space. We can also use this messaging in the creative section later on in the strategy, identify new tech in the industry, new business success factors. My wife's a lawyer. There's new AI in the legal industry. Some of it is getting lawyers in trouble. That's referencing cases that are fake. But it's important to know. It's important to know about the CALA and all these other conferences and organizations and this happening and that happening. It puts us in your seat as your marketing team. It sets your marketing team up for success. It tells your investors who are going to be funding the marketing of your digital fundraise. So it is so important to be able to put together. And here's a list of some tools.
Spike was very cool. I like it. It's basically a free tool. You can use it to not only see what traffic's going to your website, you could look at your competitors' websites. You can search for keywords, and that'll give you more ideas about other keywords to reference. Statista is, it's an easy place to find some industry stats if you want to have a place to reference, because any good compliance lawyer is going to say, well, where'd that stat come from? So you have to have it. And you want it to be a valid source, right? We look at King's Crowd every single week, probably more than once. They are a data aggregator for Reg CF and other Reg A plus, and we find so much value out of understanding what's happening in the space. We can see, well, oh, these campaigns are doing really well this week. How are they doing it, right? And every Monday as a team, we go through and we look at least one competitive marketing audit. based on who's doing really well in King's crowd. Um, so yeah, and then we're always searching just different kinds of Google searches to hone in on your audience, find different, what's going on. It's not rocket science. It just takes work. Anyway.
Pour your
Hmm. Oh, Jason, you're frozen. We could talk about social media while you're gone. Turns out that you can have a look at any ad that's running, any ad at all, on Meta or on TikTok. Um, and you can just have a look. How are people talking about themselves? What images are they using? Are they static graphics? Are they videos? Um, what's their color scheme? All the things. Jason, are you there? I hope I'm not talking over you. I
I
can't hear
am
you
No, no, no. I am back. Appreciate you talking about the social there.
there.
And whether we're talking about the good old-fashioned Google searches or getting into the competitor marketing audit, pour yourself a cup of coffee, maybe a sparkling water, and be ready to put in a few hours of research. And as mentioned for the industry overview, applies a bit to competitor marketing audit. I find this to be far more straightforward. You may need to get creative and look for those aha moments in your research. But if you don't know what your competitors are doing, then you're shooting in the dark is something we say often. It's not just this bird box meme. But it is very true. I'll speak with issuers that want to reinvent the wheel when it comes to advertising for their campaign, but they don't know what the wheel looks like for the space. They don't understand that their ad is going to be seen alongside other top issuers, some that have raised far more than them. Success leaves clues. I've said it many times on these webinars. You really need to understand what strengths, weaknesses, opportunities analysis um, uh, of uh, of these competitors specifically. And when you're doing so, you want to start determining what you can do better than them. You want to start having that conversation. You perform a content analysis. So we looked at some of those tools with Abby on the last slide. Abby mentioned on Mondays, we put together an audit of everything happening in the space, the top portals, top 10 issuers. We'll look at the top 10% of issuers. As of this morning, there's 549 live reg CFs. We'll look at the top 20%, top 50%. We'll look at how many campaigns have raised zero. As of Monday, 31% of Reg CFs in the month of February have raised $0. And then we'll pick out those top issuers and pull up a tab for each one of these. SimilarWeb, SpyFu. We'll look at some of the social pages of one issuer, one of the top issuers. We'll look at their raise page. We'll look at their comments, their updates. We'll look at their Facebook ad library and see their actual ads. We'll look at Google News to see who's talking about them in the media. On social, we'll look to see who's talking about them on social. Well, we'll look at a platform called Mild and/or sign up for their email newsletter to see what they're sending out as email and what other email newsletters are mentioning them. We'll look at their website, their video content. I want to know everything they're doing to obtain digital market share. Again, your investors are going to see their content. It has to be a rollout of your offering that is better than their pitch. So the only way to do that is to thoroughly understand what's occurring in the space. What about target markets? We like to A/B test variants of audiences. Abby, how are we planning this in our strategies? How are we putting together personas?
This is fantastic part of what we do because you really need to know who you're speaking to, who your audience is, and what drives them to action, right? And so not everybody's got the same target market profile, and we learn we start learning about it during the industry analysis, right? And then we start learning more about it during our competitive analysis. Well, who are your competitors speaking to, and how are they doing it? And then we get into really looking at our internal audiences. I think it's really important for DNA that we've cultivated all of these, pretty robust and fresh audiences of people who are active in crowdfunding. And we've seen over time that they tend to fall into, usually in the older age range. And usually, we're seeing California, New York, Texas, and Florida again and again outperform all other states, um, partly because they have the largest general population, but they're actually more active in crowdfunding overall. But maybe your offering is more appealing to um, older males, or maybe it's like mid 30s, or maybe it's females, right? And you want to be able to understand who you're speaking to and then tailor your message to what they care about. Um, what would you add to that, Jason?
I like to break it down to a fictional persona, an avatar level, and be able to say, Stephen, Sagar, Samuel, what age, industry, job title, what are they doing during the day? What's their net worth? What sites do they go to online? What are they looking to do online? Where are they at? Mentally, what are they actually using these devices for? Where are they located? I want to know what they do on the weekends. I want to know what influences them. We're going to be creating ad messaging that needs to showcase social proof and third-party validation. What's going to resonate with them? What's Stephen actually going to click on? What's going to drive enough interest that he's actually going to take action and put in his personal identifying information, his financials, banking info, feel enough trust in the process, let alone in the activity itself of purchasing stock, purchasing shares in these organizations. And what's driving them to do so? Is it a return? Is it an exit in 5 to 7 years, 8 to 10 years? Is it with a hope that the company may be offered publicly and can liquidate shares at a later point? Is it dividends for some of these offers? Is it merely the experience? I don't say merely to understate it. Is this not looked at as, hey, here's where it's balancing into the high risk, high return section of my portfolio, as much as I want to be a part of this. This is a space mining company. This is a tunnel boring company. This is a graphene company, foldable tiny homes. I'm very excited about this space. I want to be an owner. I want to be a shareholder in an organization that I believe is primed for growth. Not saying any of these deals are, not giving any investment advice, just trying to tap into the psyche of some of these audiences. As you can see on the top of the slide here, test, optimize, scale. That is our model. Name my podcast. We're 146 episodes in at this point, all different guests in the vertical. And it is the scientific method to a large degree. Marketing is a series of tests. We're testing channels, testing audiences, testing creatives, messaging and visuals, testing funnels that we're taking them down, and closing messaging. And we want to look for pockets of performance. Audience 2, creative C, down this funnel right here is producing the best results. Let's do more of that, but we need the data to show us what's working. These are just assumptions. Hey, here's some audiences that we would like to begin testing. In many cases, it's not these audiences that we see driving later on in the campaign. We have to come up with new variants. We then see those metrics succeeding the performance benchmarks that we've set out. Later, save to the strategy that we're going to get to. But it's testing, optimizing each segment to its best ability, then optimizing towards what's working best, then looking for opportunities to scale. It's best if you're getting outside of your head on this. So even if you're the founder and the marketer, find someone to speak to. and be able to present them opportunities to scale, recommendations to scale, whether that's your partner, your COO, maybe you're the founder and you have a marketing team, have them presenting to you. This is not just a sales video for us, but if you're working with an agency, if you're working with a consultant, contractor of sorts, I find it's best if it's a group conversation versus just internal thought and just based on return on ad spend type metrics, marketing efficiency type metrics. So as a recap, because we're getting to section 4, we've now looked at the space. We've looked at the key players in the vertical and those that are going after investors. We've analyzed their marketing, looking at their site traffic, getting an idea of their audiences. We build our own audiences. Maybe it's a historical equity crowdfunding investor, an accredited investor, some of your users that could become owners, even if they're B2B, other enthusiasts of your vertical. We want to begin A/B testing. And now that we've looked into those individuals, we can tell where they go online. We can start prioritizing those touch points as marketing channels. We can determine what we want to do on these channels, both paid with advertising and organic with content marketing. So we want to map this out.
To reflect on what you were just saying there, Jason, so many people say that same thing to me. That's really the fresh eyes. There's so much value gained in simply talking it over with the people. And another thing that I was thinking about as you're going through the target market profile is that I feel like we talk a lot about logical messaging, about market size and growth rate and all that, but there's also a really strong component of emotional messaging I think is underrated when we come to like really honing in on messages at work. And I'm really seeing that emotional messaging is can be well, you really need all of the messages, right? So we're about to get into marketing channels, and Jason often says people need 7 to 17 touch points before they decide to make an investment decision, even if it's a small dollar value, because like you do have to put in your social security number and do banking stuff. And so we find that it really is, it has to come together, right? And ads are part of it, but you also need to be emailing them. It needs to be like a surround sound kind of experience where they're seeing you online and they're getting an email from you and they're being reminded about your upcoming webinar. And then you're getting the webinar recap. Oh, if you missed it, come and take a look at the replay or all of these things. They have to work in tandem. To keep bringing people back to your deal, remind them why it's important. And it's really not just one thing. Anyway, so where we often start is advertising is a key and proven channel for getting fresh eyes to your campaign. So it should always be part of it. And depending on who your audience is, you want to be mindful of choosing, some publisher outreach opportunities. So you want other people talking about you. You want to be talking about yourself. You want other people talking about you. You need to really emphasize your strengths. And CEOs have to stand out in front of any campaign like this. There is so often that, and I know we're talking about channels here, and pitch events are one of the channels that you need to be looking at. CEOs have to stand out in front of the campaign and really be a driver. There's so many early stage investors, you hear them say it. They invest in the team. So you need to be sure that you're reflecting that in your marketing plan. So here we have it, 6 different categories that we want to look at for organic marketing. This is outside of ads. Jason, do you want to talk through it a little bit?
Sure. So you make great points for the type of content that can live in each of these channels. And you should already have an idea after going through section 2, section 3 on where you want to go with this. But again, write it out, content strategy statement, boil it down to a core statement that defines the goals, the target, the audience needs. A good content marketing stack produces a higher conversion rate statistically. If all you have is the offering page, you're trying to run some ads to it, get a direct response type of campaign going, historically it's going to underperform in comparison to having a full content marketing funnel. The funnel, of course, is a concept designed to take audiences from awareness to consideration to intent. They intend to invest in the deal, still conversion rate to those who invest. Those who invest multiple times, 10 to 30% on Reg CF on our campaigns that we've tracked. And then at the bottom, it's peer-to-peer marketing. So make sure that's part of it, is what content's going to go to investors, what content's going to go to prospects where they're then marketing for you, to their friends, their family, their coworkers. Whether it's with video, blogs, webinars, podcasts, infographics, define what types of content will serve your business and audience needs, have a content development process and cycle. Once a month, we do a video interview. With that video interview on a platform like this appears as good social content. It does not need to be, a high production, studio event. There's no limitations for you to create video content, but do a monthly interview, transcribe some of that content, write it as an article. You can have a team member capturing voice, capturing expertise. It's what we do, and have that cycle. Once a month, we do this. Every 2 weeks, we send out an article across these channels. We do a weekly update on our offering page. We call it a portal update. Who's accountable for creating this? What does that process look like? What channels is it going to be distributed across? We already know what our competitors are using. We know what you're using because you have already established that internally, and if there's any external groups involved. What does the communication look like? For your email, for your SMS, do you have a list for text for SMS? What are the goal benchmarks? A lot of the times, people like to use feeling words when describing marketing. The content looks great. Our team's awesome. Versus what is the reach? What is the traffic? What's the engagement? What are your goals around your KPIs? Because even if the content looks awesome, and I'm not doubting that at all, if you're not getting enough visibility on it, you may think it's underperforming when really you're getting a great click-through rate, just not enough people are there to substantiate the amount of traffic that you need to hit the goals. I picture 1 million visitors, 50,000 visitors to an offering page to produce $1 million in fundraising on a Reg CF, 2.5 million perhaps on a Reg A. And that reflects 1,000 investors at $1,000 each on average on Reg CF. King's Crowd last year is about $1,100. The average investment they stated for Reg CF, $2,500 for Reg A. So you need a whole lot of eyeballs to produce the amount of traffic to hit these goals. And you can include publishers, press releases, influencers, social media groups, social media partners to tap into warm existing pools. It does not need to be just advertising. Advertising is very consistent. It's very dependable, very scalable for getting those visits. But you could accomplish it having third-party publishers talk about you, but you still need a strong amount of traffic to be able to hit that conversion rate of 2% to hit those goal benchmarks we talked about. Press releases can help with syndication and being able to point out logos of, MarketWatch, Business Insider, Wall Street Journal publishes press releases. If you're just talking about how great you are, it's not as powerful as mentioning other people, other groups, other trusted, authoritative journalists that are showing, your campaign matters. Influencers, a lot of talk about that. The word can be misconstrued. It can be applied in many different fashions. You can run ads from influencers pages. You can have them posting on social. You could have them, in your video. You can have them creating ads for you as, user-generated content. There are guidelines to creating on social media groups, but again, warm pools of your target audiences. So you want to find people to tag and share.
Definitely. I'm always encouraging people to find those low-hanging fruit because there are people talking about exactly what you're talking about, and you can just add a comment onto the bottom of it in social media groups. That's an easy one. Totally free, except your time. No, but like you were saying, Jason, paid media. Well, for sure on publisher outreach, it's a lot easier to get into a paper if you're willing to pay at least a little bit for it. We can definitely get a lot more publisher engagement as long as there's a payment aspect involved. Publisher outreach otherwise can be a little bit harder to achieve if you're looking for earned media. Um, we do a lot of advertising for our clients because, like you were saying, we see it work consistently and it's scalable. Yeah.
I know
Um,
roughly every dollar, $2 we spend is a visitor to the offering page. We've built a database of over 1 million historical investment crowdfunding backers, investors. So we can use that as custom audiences. We can create lookalike models off of that. Uh, Clients will upload their own email lists, reach very specific individuals. Meta gets a bad rap these days, I believe. When there's over 1 billion daily active users, we reach the heads of family offices and various types of funds. We reach credit investors. We reach CEOs on these platforms. It carries a very high click-through rate, high conversion rate in comparison to other channels, even LinkedIn advertising. Huge fan for LinkedIn outreach. We'll talk about outreach in a bit. But for advertising, Meta is still a top channel. The pixel tracking has been a huge issue since the iOS 14.5 and later updates, as the view through and click through conversions require off app tracking. Bull says to track off app to a mobile publisher such as Meta, you need permission. Only about 5% of users give Meta permission. Only about 30% of conversions can be tracked accordingly outside of Apple mobile iOS users, desktop, laptop, Android gets us to about 30% of the conversions. Some issuers then feel their ads are not working. If they're seeing a 2x, 3x return on advertising spend on the pixel data, they may not realize that it may be 6x, 9x across the board. They'll stop advertising. They'll see traffic slow down, investments slow down dramatically. So you really want to get an understanding of what's working, what can scale, and have the right analysis around it, not just base it on a return on ad spend metric. There's many other numbers to look at outside of that on a report. You can encompass traditional media channels if compliant and you want to run that by legal. But daily allocations per audience, audience targeting, the ad optimization strategy, not just the initial launch strategy, and the scaling strategy are all important components to this. And really defining where to focus your marketing budget. So you've put together a list of channels. Now prioritize where you want to test first to reflect your budget, to reflect your timeline. Time is the most important resource here. Understand that you need to build a retargeting pool. You want to run ads to people who have already been to your offering page, already clicked on an ad, and they're likely going to perform to a greater degree. So the larger your retargeting pool, the better your projections for performance can be. And if you build that up early, if you build that up in the middle stages, what that means later, what that means for the closing messaging. So do not sell your brand short during those stages. If you're not seeing a great return, you still want to stack that retargeting pool so it can round itself out at a later point. But really understand the target market, the audience needs, your competitors' strategies when putting together your budget with the projected amount of traffic that you're going to receive.
I think one thing I might add there is that it's worth putting a portion of your budget aside for creating user generated content. We see that videos really authentic ones, they don't have to be high production value, but authentic videos from it really help build that social proof and trust feelings. So definitely encourage people to carve out a small bit of the budget for that. All right.
And don't just say, hey, we're going to run TikTok ads. We're going to run TikTok ads with UGC. Say we're going to run TikTok ads with UGC this is the starting budget. Here's the amount of traffic that we're anticipating. Here's the amount of conversions. Here's what we're going to do to optimize. Here's what we're going to do to scale. All of the different pieces here to set those channels up for success. Which brings us to our creative plan. UGC, as part of that, user-generated content. This includes a content calendar of what's going to be published where and when. This also takes into account your ads that you're going to be rolling out with and at later stages of your campaign. Large Regulation A campaigns may come up with different headlines, different announcements to be rolled out throughout the course of the campaign that are meaningful enough to create a strong response, to create third-party coverage. Content is the funnel. Without content, you won't have anything to attract, engage, and convert traffic. It's all in the follow-up. It's all in those 7 to 17 touch points. So determining what's going to go into that funnel to take audiences from that awareness stage to the consideration of the deal to the intent. So when we talk about funnel and we're now determining what's going to go inside, that this is why it matters.
I think every single successful campaign that I've seen has a campaign video, right? So the offering page is a key sales tool for any investment crowdfunding. And you do want to have a good, relatively concise video to start off. We almost always see video outperforming static graphics, just kind of across the board. And so when you're looking at, well, what creatives do we have for our investor acquisition campaign? A really key one you really do have to start off with is your campaign video. It might be the only thing that people see about it. Think about how short attention spans are right now. When your creative is lackluster, then people aren't going to stick around. And especially in the TikTok era, right? We know the first 6 seconds is the most important, right? So when you're looking at your creative, the first thing you want to think is how eye-catching is this? Is it going to, one, make sense to people quickly? Is it simple enough? Because I often find that you get into your own world and your own business, and you need those fresh eyes to uh, help you understand if it's easy to interpret or not, right? Because simplicity is so important. You may have less than a minute. You might have way less than a minute to convince people that it's worth spending more time getting to know you. So yeah, when you're starting out with your creative audit, you need to know that a video is going to be important. That part is key. Your offering page is so important. Your headlines, the first headline, like the very top of your campaign, is probably the most critical thing, and everything is going to follow from there. But if you don't have a compelling top third, then you've lost people already. And the rest of it won't matter because they won't see it. Anyway, so headlines on everything are the first thing to look at. It's a bit specific. It's more on the tactical side, but you're going to definitely need to spend some time and effort on your offering page. Consider it your key sales tool, and all of the content marketing that we're talking about or advertising going around it is funneling into that. So brand consistency is also important. Yeah, that's the second thing I'd like to add there. You want people to feel like when they see your ad and then they come to your page that it makes sense that they go together. Those are my top things I'm looking for when I'm first looking at a new offering. What do you look for, Jason, first in a creative audit?
So producing creative, I want to look for the aha moments. I want to look for what occurs offline that makes investors' eyes get a little bigger, sit on the edge of their chair, use words that reflect they're moving forward. I want to encapsulate that into a digital format. The same is true with the follow-up, so later stages of the funnel. What type of follow-ups, checking in, circling back around, messages really matter to investors to the point that they're moving forward. So as you mentioned, Abby, the campaign video, the investor testimonials, uh, Jason Frischman, not Jason Fishman, at Net Capital says everybody wants to be first to be second. That refers to more of a traditional offline investing where, someone participates in the deal, a bunch of other investors see that and get involved, looking for similar effects with digital. So the investor testimonials can serve a very strong purpose there. Customer testimonials. Do people actually like this product, this company? How do we show that? Landing page for the website, talking about the investment opportunity specifically, an email drip sequence, advertisements, investor Q&A webinar, later webinars, raise milestones. We hit 100, we hit 250, we hit 500, 750, million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. Company or product updates on the platform, press releases, again, with the right headlines, as Abby's emphasizing here, guest posts, third-party platforms, all to be taken into account. But figuring all of this out pre-launch, figuring all of this out before you're going live. It can be shifted. It can be moved, managed to a point of effectiveness, but you don't want to be scrambling on a Tuesday morning with everything else that's going on. I know you're wearing a lot of other hats and doing many other things beyond just fundraising, trying to determine what should I put into this social post? What email would be good to get out? Portal update, I'm not sure right now. It's just that much more organized and effective to build out this experience that you're taking investors through from the get-go, and being able to then adjust as you're seeing the analytics optimize, test, optimize, scale, but having it mapped out from the beginning. And partnerships, section 6 can help accelerate that, because you're helping leverage new audiences and distribution channels. So press opportunities, influencer collaboration, investor and entrepreneurial groups, social media groups to join, relevant brands collaborations. Anyone who has a pool of your target audience that is hopefully warm and responsive, maybe large, and can talk about your campaign. You can build grassroots strategies where, let's say, over the course of 90 days, the first 90 days of your campaign, you have 90 different groups talking about the round. If we're working with a group and they ask us to, all of your partners, legal, financial, all of them can be doing something similar. Key clients, anchor investors, industry partners. You want to find as many groups as you can to be able to validate the deal throughout the course of the round.
LinkedIn's a fantastic B2B platform. You can really hone in on who you want to talk to and then reach out to them. And like I was saying, it's not just about connecting with people, it's also about connecting with groups and then posting within groups. It's a great way to amplify your message pretty simply. Find that actual business traction is what people care about. They actually want to find out what your company is doing right now, and just to see that you're continuing to move things forward. I think one thing that, like, 10,000 foot view on digital marketing for this is that you need to have a consistent, high quality, but just consistency. You need to be regularly sharing your messages with everybody that you can, right? So strategic partnerships are great. You can feature them as a form of social proof. You can have them talking about you. It's absolutely a fundamental piece, and especially at the beginning, right? It's so crucial to get your allies on board with your campaign as soon as you can, because the crowd effect is real. If you don't have a crowd with you on your campaign, then it's going to be a whole lot harder to get other people on board, because everybody wants to be first to be second. Anyway.
It's that empty restaurant sensation
Mm-hmm.
versus the line around the block. So empty restaurant, menu looks good, venue looks nice, but no one's here. Is there something off? I don't know. Do people just not like this place? Meanwhile, the place with the line around the block across the street, you may not even know what they serve. You may not have an understanding of their product, but there's an interest to go try that spot. Uh, Partnerships beyond just the momentum of your campaign can play an important role around that. And LinkedIn, you can send 25 plus invitations per day per profile. You can look for a 20 to 40% acceptance rate of those invitations and then message those new contacts and look for a 20% or higher response rate. Have a scheduling link in there to set up these partnerships. We've seen it produce strong individual investments as well with larger transactional values. So a lot to be done there on LinkedIn. And the entire strategy, algorithmic strategy, as we've discussed, culminates with the projections. The only way to measure with numbers, we already talked about feeling words and algorithms, impressions, clicks, conversions. That's what you want to put together in the projections. So clearly see how your funds will be allocated to each channel, set budget metrics to track and measure. That way you can reallocate budget to a better performing channel or reduce budget for a poorly performing channel. You know what you're looking to produce each month of the campaign as building blocks to get to your full goal. It'll probably have you looking for more capital to spend on the marketing campaign because you may realize that, hey, to get 250,000 people to my offering page to raise $5 million, I may need $250,000 in advertising to get there. That may be spread out across $25,000 per month in advertising spend. Maybe we don't want to burn $25,000 in the testing stage. Maybe it's, $5,000, $15,000 to start, but then quickly ramping up to balance out to get to that larger level. Perhaps you have to do this in 3 months, 4 months. Probably need to spend a lot more on traffic or find more organic partners, more strategic partners to really bring their audience to the page with enough volume and frequency. So you may have to go back and revisit some of the other sections of the strategy accordingly here, but it's better to put yourself through these questions and go through this process pre-launch than it is during your campaign and looking at a $5,000 ad spend and wondering how you're going to get to $5 million in total raise.
It's true that advertising can feel expensive, but we feel like it's important because we see it work, right? We don't make recommendations because we want to, right? We make recommendations because this is how we're seeing the top campaigns find their success. Um, that said, you do, as companies, you have so many things to consider and make sure it's all going to average out and be in your best interest. So you do have to plan for it, right? I don't know, Jason, what do you have in mind here?
Yeah. So, to build off that budgeting discussion further, uh, we have seen budgets as small as 20K be successful, but we would never project that. We've seen financial email newsletters pick up a lot of the weight and send the traffic, send the investors there. There's financial email newsletters that are free for investors and pick the best issuers to feature. There's ones that charge issuers to be featured to those. There's financial email newsletters that are paid for the investors. They have to pay to actually receive the recommendations. They're much harder to then be selected by the publishers to be talked about. But we could see a rush of investments occur afterwards. But many of those activations are few and far between, meaning they don't get selected. If they do, it's months before the distribution actually takes place. So this is where you want to figure it all out and map out your budget to reflect industry averages. Industry average is 10%, meaning you should account for at least 10% of your budget on hard media spend. If you're hitting a 10x return on ad spend, 10x marketing efficiency ratio from what you're spending, what's being raised, because you can't track everything. You may need 500K to raise $5 million. Maybe it's 250K, but probably better to project for 500 in that scenario, and ramp into it. Rolling closes, taking disbursements to reinvest into marketing is extremely common in the space, but you want to know how you're going to get there. Work backwards from your goal, not from how much you want to spend, and you're going to be in a much better place. This is the classic, CFO section. Hey, what's this all going to cost? What's it going to produce? Tell a strong enough story here. Address the concerns. Talk about the metrics you saw in King's Crowd. In 2023, there was 1,434, I believe, Reg CF campaigns. There's a full report on King's Crowd. 7.46% of them, I do know that number, hit $1 million or more. Looking at Reg CF, I believe it's 50% haven't gone past $74,000 in their raise. You want to blow past 100K and get into the six-figure raise amounts, 250, 500, even better in the early stages. And oftentimes that's from first degree networks, friends, family, customers, past investors. But you want to, get past what other campaigns are doing. You then want to scale with the marketing. You want to be very educated in this exercise. Otherwise, you may be planning to fail. Failing the plan is planning to fail. If you're saying, let's just put it up and see what happens, probably under 75K, perhaps you're bringing a good amount of investors, you're still beholden to any type of peer-to-peer marketing to get your campaign past that. This is where you can be intentional and determine how much your traffic you're getting where and when throughout the campaign. If there are surprises that bump you well past that, fantastic, but you're not holding your breath for it. This then comes through to the activation section. They say the real value of a plan is the process, not the finished product. So you've asked yourself all these questions. You've been able to refine a strategy to produce the goals needed and feel confident about that structure to get there being your best approach to the goal. The activation section is an executive summary. It's a couple pages, and you want to be able to present that to anyone so that they understand how you're going to get to the goal. Every day that passes in your campaign is an opportunity gained or an opportunity missed. By mapping out your campaign month to month, week to week, you'll clearly set expectations and goals for the progress of the campaign. Abby, you want to go through the activation timeline to wrap the essence of the presentation here?
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes I say it's a marathon to the start line because there's just so much that goes into getting your Reg CF off the ground, even before you launch your campaign, right? So then what do you really need to start off with? Well, we'd say initial ad set and 2 weeks of content, which is what we would build out for you during the strategy section. And actually, there's a huge amount of value if you do organic marketing for yourself during the pre-launch or before you go live. It's a really good idea to have a robust organic marketing program already up and running before you start trying to tell people about why they should invest in your company. But anyway, so you want to have your content ready. You need to have ads ready to run. You need to have your first couple weeks of content. That's a launch announcement with a press release and emails and portal updates and social posts. It is a full stack of things, which is why it's nice to work with a marketing agency to kind of help take some of that off your plate. And then there's the distribution. Somebody has to send it out. Right. And we want to be able to track how ads are performing. So on the technical side, there's a fair amount of setup that needs to happen before things can be sent out and go live. But if you've got a plan and you've got all that all ready to run, then it doesn't have to feel like such a burden. I've always been an athlete, and so I was telling Khalil this before our call today. There's two ways to approach it when you're about to run up a hill. Like that, you could be telling yourself, "Oh, this looks really hard," and "Oh, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know, it looks really hard." Or you could say, "You know what? I'm an athlete. I'm about to run up this hill and I'm going to conquer this thing." And it's going to take effort, but part of the challenge is having a good attitude about the effort that it's going to take and understanding what it takes to get there from here to there. And I know we're at the end of our time, but I'll just leave you with knowing that to stand out, you do have to make an effort on marketing when it comes to regulated investment crowdfunding. You have to get those eyeballs to your offering page. You just need people there. Anyway.
Well said, Abby. And want to thank everybody for tuning in to today's webinar. This can be found online. If you're not already subscribed, encourage you to join our email list as well so that you can receive announcements about upcoming webinars. We do a weekly podcast, articles, feature events that we're going to be speaking at, and can get a lot more information. Also, if you reach out to us, we have a strategy checklist that we use internally that you can incorporate into your own planning processes. Do not hesitate to reach out as well. Speaking of DNA is not just a sales discussion. We want to be an open book in terms of what we see working, not working in the space, and can give you, very helpful insights for your own campaigns. Invite the opportunity to collaborate with you, whether it's on a consulting, one-off or ongoing basis. So this is how we do it. This is how we've been able to raise 9 figures of capital. Definitely recommend that you take each page, each step of the strategy into the planning of your own campaign, test, optimize, and scale, and go beyond the statistics and raise as much as you can for your round. Thank you, Abby. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. We will see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, Jason.